So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage, so then we can understand the time of the end. As per Yeshayahu the prophet, we find then layers of understanding of the spring feast, the autumn feast, and also the returning of the cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries. As we read the Holy Instruction, it's very prudent analyzing then Daniel the 12th chapter, and then verifying what's going on with this time of the restoration period regarding then the holy cities, plus as a bonus given then the Gentiles an organized understanding of the trade of the world. Let's then first verify Daniel the 12th chapter very quickly, because it explains the 4th verse, where then the angel is having a talk with Daniel. When we read this section, it's very important having in mind these layers as the angel was explaining some of the factors related with the prophecies. The angel gave then a simple understanding, as then if he would give a real nice briefing of those layers where Daniel waited for so long. Sometimes it's not easy studying those areas of layers, and then the angel comes and gives a tiny briefing, but explains so much in such a short chapter. Let's analyze then what the angel has said regarding then the 4th verse and 5th verse of the 12th chapter. He said it very plainly. Then, but you, O Daniel, shut up the words. It's not truly the words, but the layers of understanding of this topic of the end. What are we analyzing? Firstly, we must understand then the statue of Daniel, this 2nd chapter. The relation of the 10th, 11th, and 12th chapter relates with the base of the statue, where iron does not mix with the clay. Then the angel goes further and explains. Then shut up the layers of these understandings until the time of the end, because many shall then go to and fro, or they shall roam around. What's the exact understanding of this roaming? Related directly with 1,000 years of deceit. Firstly then, the angel is directing Daniel and the understandings firstly related with his people. But then try to understand Daniel as a man of trade, so we can compare him, Gentile, wise speaking, related with the trade, because as we read Yeshayahu, you find then the Gentiles being included in a plan. Try to understand, Daniel was serving a king, a pagan king. So what do we understand of these? Many shall go around and roaming, and knowledge shall increase. What can we compare Daniel as far as a trader, a tradesperson in today's world? Try to understand Mr. Xi of China. We can compare him with Mr. Xi, nearly a genius regarding trade of this time of the end. Why do we say this? Because the system, as we can understand, is intertwined with the computer. knowledge shall increase for the purposes of trade. Daniel was a tradesperson. He was a person doing then many tasks for the king in order to enrich the kingdom. When Daniel was explaining as far as the fort, try to understand the meaning of fort, as it was then a fort, something very strong. When we understand something very strong, try to relate yourself. If you're an American, you can truly relate this if you study a bit the Second World War. Let's evaluate then the preparation for the invasion of Japan. For instance, the taking on of Saipan, the island of Okinawa, and then from then on, then the B-29s, the super bombers, they were being organized, so then the invasion of Japan was then underway. America had a grasp of the situation, and they knew they would have won this war. They knew it. With the same tenacity and certainty of the war's end prior of the ending of the war itself, so as you can understand the new system via computer. The point is, you can't easily detect when simplicity plays a vital role during this time of the restoration period. If you observe Mr. Xi, it's very simple, but the knowledge behind is extremely high. So let's not be judgmental when we observe a person from afar and thinking this, that, or the other, because there is a lot in it. Let's evaluate first the mortgage system of the United States. It is nearly in the hands of the Chinese. And then prior of this time, we can safely say around the 70s and 80s and 90s, where computers were very scarce around the world. Not very many people had computers except companies, and they were very primitive. Yet, using those kinds of tapes in their computers, during those times, China already knew that the world's market could be under the control of the computer. So let's say we evaluate, for instance, Dragon Mart. It is the most powerful and largest company in the world. They have nearly everything in those kinds of markets. Everything you can think of. So then, if a person would say, let's try reverse then the system, so then the world can be included in this plan, but as individual nations, so they can do trade as China does. It can't be done. We are roughly 40 years behind. Since the 70s, 80s, and 90s, China already knew. They already had the future secured, as you can understand America prior of the invasion of Japan. They had the certainty that they would have won the war if it wasn't because of the doubts of many. Speaking of Japan itself, because they thought at the end they would have some sort of a miracle at the end, where then even Germany sent the U-864, the submarine U-boat, that tried to go over it and was intercepted by the British submarine, the Venturer, and then the U-234 that was intercepted later. But then the certainty of the system is very strong. If you would understand back then, though many of us, we were not born during the 40s. Yet there was a fort in the United States of America, as then the powerful nation was then ready to go to war with Japan. It was an absolute fort beyond understanding. So then Daniel described many times as he was there in the fort. The fort that Daniel was explaining has a similitude of the fort during the war, so then as the trade of the time of the end. It's not truly an analogy, it is a certainty. So then, as we evaluate, for instance, Dragon Mart, we firstly study then the local papers, and there is a very important newspaper coming from London named the BRICS Post, where then the Brazilian government, as Brazil is part of the BRICS system, came out with a project of a submarine cable joined with Spain, Eastlink, of laying down cables from Brazil to the Iberic Peninsula and then other countries. Interestingly, it names the BRICS cable. If you read the article, you can find it. So then, in a very unique way, the newspaper online revealed the answer. Many people, they don't believe there is a system coming, but there is. And as was explained before, nations will try to control the system via what then King of Babylon tried to do in the 3rd chapter of Daniel. There is a similitude, a desire for control. In laying down this cable is roughly 26,000 miles of cable under the sea, and the work shall start in July of this year. This then gives you a hint of the importance of the new system. So then, as we read then Daniel and the fort, you can imagine what Mr. Shi then senses in his system, where then, with him or not, the system takes place. It is an absolute fort beyond understanding and must take place. And when it does, it is until the end. Let's try to understand then what the angel said regarding Daniel the traitor. If you read the end of the 12th chapter, the angel explains, but you go on to the end, and then you shalt rest, and these understandings shalt stand until the end of days. As we understand, the calculation is extremely simple, but the most important point is this: evaluate the Dragon Mart's computerized system, and if you know how to read it, you can understand the new system. The only link lacking at the moment is making it, firstly, the Chinese yen virtual, and a huge worldwide computerized purchasing, banking, and investment at the same time. If you are familiar with most of these sites where you can purchase, you have mostly couple of categories: or a couple of steps. Firstly, you select your product. Second, you pay for it. A third is the investment of the very product. It's not complicated. But then, the situation itself is not the system itself, but a linker. This truly is what's lacking. A linker linking up with the system. For those people who are evaluators of systems, if you then evaluate very precisely and meticulously how Dragon Mart does its work online, obviously sections of it is confidential, so be very careful what you do and what not with others' system, because they can bring you to court. However, if you find the information very precisely, you will find the system there. A step further is simply making it available for every computer. And then the third step, investment on products. And once you have a personal contract with the Bank of China via the computer, then the world is done. Nations are done. They can't reverse it. If some nations, such as Brazil, for instance, trying to lay down this cable, and we are in 2014, from the 70s, is roughly 40 years behind schedule. Mortgages, computerized systems, purchasing, the whole situation is intertwined profoundly. People can't unweave these anymore. When the system is launched, it is then the last step. So then, as Daniel was then not satisfied with the explanation of the angel did not go any further than he should have. He said simply a very briefing portion of these. Daniel did hear it, and then the angel simply said, shut up the understandings at the moment until the time of the end. And that was it. Daniel also had question marks in his mind. He did not receive what he wanted. The very fact that the angel saying, while he was resting, and he saw this in his dream, as he used to do in the past, he would take a walk outside of his work environment, he would go to a river, and there he would rest. You can read it, he did these many times. And then the fact that the angel said, simply shut up the words, and the words meaning layers of these understandings. And the angel simply said, in other words, do not ask any more questions. That's what you prayed for, that's what you got. Only resume your duties. But we have the privilege of understanding these layers and the importance of China in the world and its system. So then, later they're going to evaluate more step by step other kinds of systems, such as the virtual monetary market and so on and so forth. But many of those kinds, they are not protected by the investment on products. They are strictly financial systems where sometimes a lot of them do not have protection. It's a simple trust of those investors with money. But the companies themselves, they don't have products of their own factories, whereas China does. Analyze for yourself and compare yourself with the system, then link Daniel with Mr. Xi of China. It is very similar. Daniel was the most advanced system of his time. That's why he named himself and where he was at a fort. Step by step, we are finding out more information as Daniel is linked with other prophets. But as far as what we understand of Yirmiyahu being very compacted, Daniel was simply a ramification of what Yirmiyahu then recorded. The only situation is Yirmiyahu was regarded as a crazy man during his time, so lots of his writings were then discarded. If we had the privilege of having every writing of Yirmiyahu, it would become so clear these days, but we do not have those. But we do have enough so then we can understand. Please stay tuned, much more coming up.